Greetings, comrades. I'm your host, KGB313, and we have a video for you today talking about a subject near and dear to my heart, and that is the 1980s Transformers cartoon, also known as the G1 version of Transformers. Now, what inspired this video is I had a conversation with a buddy yesterday about the Michael Bay Transformers films, which I am not a huge fan of, but he said he loves. And when I kind of got into why with him, he ultimately said, look, they're big, dumb popcorn movies about giant robots that beat each other up and make things explode. And it's based on an 80s show meant to sell toys to little kids. So, yeah, that made me cringe a little bit because I felt like, and he admitted he didn't grow up on the series, where I did. And so, like, I was 7 years old when the series began. I fell in love with these characters, and I really do believe that there is more depth to the series than what people give it credit for. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. Let's start by giving you guys some background, which is that, you know, back in the 70s even, it wasn't common to try to sell toys with a cartoon. So what changed the game? George Lucas. The Star Wars line of action figures was a huge seller for Kenner, and everybody wanted in on that action as much as they could. One of the early adopters of that was Hasbro, and there is a reason that they brought back G.I. Joe and made G.I. Joe from Barbie size to now the exact same size as Star Wars figures. The Real American Hero line also changed the concept of G.I. Joe from an individual generic soldier to a team of highly specialized agents, each with their own unique powers. And to be honest with you, it's just, they did a really brilliant thing with that IP. With both G.I. Joe and Transformers, they made an agreement with Marvel, and they brought in a writer by the name of Larry Hama. And he took all the different toy concepts that they had and helped them develop these into fully realized characters with backstories and biographies. And Larry Hama actually took the project seriously. He did some great work, helped to develop some wonderful characters that are beloved ever since, from both franchises, actually. So, when it came to Transformers, I can't say the same is necessarily true for G.I. Joe, but I know for Transformers, the writers were given a lot of freedom. The emphasis was, we want you to feature so many characters per episode. Here's some characters we'd like to feature. Make sure you give them some hero moments so that fans will get excited about them. And then that way, you'll go ahead and help us to sell this product. So it's not a coincidence that, for example, in Season 2, when the aerial bots are introduced, it's really a story about Silverbolt. Because, why? All the other members of the aerial bots are like $4 a piece, and Silverbolt is the central of the aerial bots combiner. He's like a $12 figure, you know, so of course he's going to get more of the spotlight and be portrayed more heroically. So there is a little bit of that to sell toys cynicism that exists within Transformers. I'm not going to deny that it exists, but the writers were given so much freedom that a lot of these guys were, you know, they were young, they were early in their careers, and they wanted to hone their craft. They wanted to become better writers. So they said, let's use this as an opportunity to tell good stories. And in doing so, they did write some good stories that are not common things you find in kid shows. And along with it, they made it a point not to talk down to kids in most of these episodes. So you really got some interesting content out of it. what I would like to do here is to show a couple of scenes from just the initial 3-part episode that kicked off the series, More Than Meets the Eye, and to kind of show, like, the writing is deeper than just a kid show to push toys on people. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pot this music down a little bit because it's a little loud. With the other content. So let's go ahead and set up this first clip. The first clip is an interaction between Megatron, the Decepticon leader, and his number 2, Starscream. If you're not familiar with the character, Starscream is a former scientist. Megatron is kind of the general, like he's the absolute malevolent leader of the Decepticons. He is by far their most fearsome warrior, and he really understands like the theater of war. He's a good big picture strategic thinker, where Starscream is a little bit more book smart, being a scientist. This scene takes place right after he's scolded Starscream for depleting a good chunk of their energy reserves to prove that Earth resources will indeed power their technology. But I think what's really interesting here is the dialogue. And I want you to check this out and tell me if you think this sounds like something written for a 7-year-old.
Don't push me, Megatron. My desire for power is as great as yours.
Power flows to the one who knows how. Desire alone is not enough.
Time makes all things possible. I can wait.
Like, that's not written for a 7-year-old. I'm sorry, but it's not. That is 2 intelligent beings having a philosophical debate on the nature of power and leadership. Starscream is pointing out that he wants to rule the universe just as much as Megatron does. You know, he's not about setting them back. And, you know, they both know Starscream wants to be leader someday. And Megatron points out to him, he's like, hey, just because you want power doesn't mean you're going to get it. These guys don't follow me because I'm ambitious. They follow me because I know what to do. I know what needs to be done. And that's that's a really interesting back and forth between them, because then Starscream finishes it off by saying, look, you're going to be gone someday and I'm going to be in charge. It's going to happen. Mark my words. So, like, there's a lot more going on there than, like, a little kid can pick up what's going on, but to really understand what they're saying back and forth, like, it is pretty interesting. It's well written, too. Very concise. So let's go ahead and set up our next clip here. In this one, I want to illustrate, this is from the other side of the spectrum, the Autobots who have been, you know, the Autobots routinely get their butts kicked. Aside from Optimus Prime, who is, you know, the Superman of the Transformers world. You know, the Autobots are routinely getting battered around by the Decepticons because the Decepticons are warriors and the Autobots were, as we later find out, developed as workers and domestic servants. So what that means is that the Decepticons have a huge advantage in terms of warfare. So what you have is there are some characters within the Autobot cause that are pacifists or you know, really not enthusiastic about their chances.
Maybe we
we should repair our ship and go back to Cybertron and forget about the Decepticons.
We can't do that, Mirage. If Megatron succeeds here, he'll be impossible to beat on Cybertron.
But we're not fighters like they are, Prime.
We must have courage, Huffer. We can't ignore the danger. We must conquer it.
Now, it's important to note that Peter Cullen and some of the writers have talked about the inspiration for Optimus Prime was really to make him very much like Abraham Lincoln, in the sense of like just this very benevolent leader with a lot of great personal qualities. And so, I mean, Optimus there is essentially arguing against the concept of isolationism and saying, like, look, if we ignore this problem, if we run away from this problem, it is going to come back to destroy us. So we have to face it now. And again, not necessarily something that you would expect from a kid show, especially from an action kid show like this, because it's just, when you're a little kid, you expect the good guys want to defeat the bad guys. But in this case, there is some realism there, because the good guys just want to go home. So let's go ahead and go to our next clip. And this one shows just kind of how dark the series can get at times. It's definitely deeper than just a kid's show. I want you to pay special attention to this line coming up here in the dialogue, because it takes it to a pretty dark place.
You're finished, Megatron. Call it off. Call it off.
Never, Prime! You and every last Autobot will be destroyed!
If you didn't catch that, Megatron just told him that the Decepticons' goal, their stated objective in the war against the Autobots, is genocide. How many kid shows can you think of where genocide is what the bad guy is after? In Scooby-Doo, Old Man Smithers just wanted to, like, you know, he just wanted to buy the amusement park for cheap. You know? Like, Megatron wants to wipe the Autobots out of existence forever. So, yeah. Pretty dark. Darker than most shows for 7-year-olds tend to go. So, hopefully I've given you some idea that the writing on this show, it is a little bit deeper than what you find out of most kids' cartoons. It's certainly about more than just selling toys to kids. Although it was very successful in doing that as well. So, I may do additional parts to this as kind of a series, but for right now, I hope I've at least shown you that there is more depth to the Transformers cartoon of the 1980s than it's given credit for. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button here. If you would like to check me out on Twitch, I am simply twitch.tv/KGB313, or you can find my Twitter information on your screen below. In the meantime, like I said, we'll come back and revisit this subject again, and I hope you will join us next time. Das Vidanya.